Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the latest headlines. Prime Minister unveils a host of labour reform schemes in a program titled Shramev Jayate. Says ease of doing business is essential for success of the Make in India campaign. India to test its state-of-the-art nuclear-capable cruise missile Nirbhay today. The landmark Nirbhay will use signals from the indigenous navigation satellite fleet. After stepped-up US airstrikes, Islamic State militants now driven out of most parts of Kobani in Syria. UN terms IS a potentially genocidal movement. And WHO to ramp up efforts to prevent Ebola from spreading beyond the 3 worst affected African nations. 15 countries to get help with prevention and protection. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning, Shramev Jayate, that's the name given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Big Bang labour reforms. In recent years, no government has broached the issue of labour reforms for fear of angering unions and raising a political storm. But will the move generate mass employment while clearing bureaucratic bottlenecks? That's the essence of the Make in India program. Here's a detailed report.
जितनी ताकत सत्यमेव जयते की है, उतनी ही ताकत राष्ट्र के विकास के लिए श्रम एव जयते की है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi today moved labour reforms up in his list of priorities. If implemented, these reforms will end up cranking up the manufacturing jobs machine like never before. At the launch of the Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay Shramev Jayate Karyakram, Prime Minister Modi envisaged a total revamp that will make it easier to do business in the country.
मेक इन इंडिया को सफल करना है तो ईज ऑफ बिजनेस ये सबसे पहली रिक्वायरमेंट है। ईज ऑफ बिजनेस प्रमुखतया शासन की जिम्मेवारी होती है। उसकी कानूनी व्यवस्थाएं, उसका इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, उसकी स्पीड, ये सारी बातें उसके साथ जुड़ी हुई हैं और इसलिए ईज ऑफ बिजनेस मेक इन इंडिया की प्रायोरिटी है।
The pro-labour reforms detailed by the Prime Minister include demand-based vocational training, an apprentice scheme and revamp of the health insurance scheme to benefit workers in the unorganised sector. The country's micro, small and medium enterprises sector comprises almost 36 million units, employing 81 million people. While many of these are service sector enterprises, a good chunk are also small manufacturing enterprises, which remain small in order to receive excise concessions and avoid labour laws. Under the proposed system, a unique labour identification number will be allotted to industrial units to facilitate online registration. Compliance will also be ensured online, with the number of returns to be filed being reduced from the present 16 to just 1. Inspectors visiting factories to ensure compliance of the law will no longer be free to pick and choose whom they choose to visit, a key cause of selective harassment leading to bribery and corruption, also known as Inspector Raj. Instead, inspectors will now be allotted to industries through a computerized system and they have to file their reports within 3 days. But perhaps the biggest changes relate to a draft new law intended to free small factories forever from the tentacles of Inspector Raj and compliance hassles, the Small Factories Regulation of Employment and Conditions of Services Bill 2014.
ई-गवर्नेंस, ईजी गवर्नेंस है, इफेक्टिव गवर्नेंस है, इकोनॉमिकल गवर्नेंस भी है, एट द सेम टाइम ई-गवर्नेंस ट्रांसपेरेंसी के लिए भी कुल मिलाकर के एक विश्वास पैदा करता है।
Along with this new draft law, the Labour Ministry is also planning to repeal 3 other labour laws. This is the first time in recent years that the issue of labour reforms has been broached. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Joining me this morning to talk about the labour reforms is Mr. Jessim Pius, Assistant Professor, Institute for Studies in Industrial Development. Very good morning and thank you for joining us, Jessim. I mean, these were much anticipated, much awaited labour reforms that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has unveiled. Your take on these labour reforms?
First of all, the whole debate on labor reforms has gone on for a long time. And there has been a lot of talk, but very little has been done on paper. But in practice, there's lots of things that have happened. For example, yesterday he stressed a lot on the issue of self-certification.
Yes.
And how self-certification will come in a big way. Now, self-certification has been there for a long time. It's been practiced in many places, and it's the Prime Minister who talks about it. Now, what is the problem with this self-certification? The Prime Minister says, he gave an analogy of your own car versus your factory.
Yes.
If you can maintain your own car, and there's no need for an inspector to come and meaning inspect your car and certify that it's ready. Why should he come to your factory and inspect your boiler? Why wouldn't you take responsibility? Now, there is a flaw in this argument. You see, in your own car, you travel yourself. The danger is to you yourself, okay? And so it is in your own interest to maintain your car. But in your factory, and if you're talking about the owner of the factory doesn't operate the boiler. It's the workers who operate. And if there is a mishap, it's the workers who bear the brunt, not the owner. Of course, there is a loss. So this, the argument about self-certification, working out to improve conditions, to improve productivity, I think it's been taken too far. Self-certification works only when you've achieved a certain level of standards. And we as a nation, as a manufacturing nation, we are very far from that standard.
Okay.
So I don't think it will work. Meaning in the sense of bringing about quality of work, safety and standards, self-certification is going to be a disaster.
Okay, let's talk about something else now. As far as these labor reforms are concerned, you're going to see better pension, you're going to see improved pays, you're going to see a standard of salary as well. So this is what at least is being proposed as of now. Do you see that really being implemented? Do you see that happening? And what about the labor unions? Are we going to see the labor unions now erupt?
Okay, so let me slightly rephrase what you're saying. You see, the issue about reforms was, one of the issues about reforms where we have too many laws and there's too much confusion, different definitions in different laws. You have to simplify procedures, and for an employer it's a pain. 16 forms to fill and so on. That was the thing. And every attempt was to say we are going to simplify, we are going to make it easy. Even now, the new law, the new factories law, says we are going to try and make it easy. On that count, it is my view that you're not making it easy. You're adding another law to it. Okay, you have the Factories Act for the large factories, and you have a Small Factories Act for the small factories. And again, you have definitional issues. I don't think we are improving on that. Okay, now, if we are not improving on the definitional issues, multiplicity and so on, what is the mechanism by which wages will improve, conditions will improve? That is not very clear. That is not very clear. Okay. The original idea of saying, okay, we have a comprehensive study of all the regulations. Maybe we have 4 new regulations which replace all, comprehensive, clear procedure. That is something I don't see happening.
Okay.
Maybe that is the direction to go, but that it cannot be done in 3 months.
But can we at least argue and say that this is a start at least in the right direction, and maybe going ahead, going forward, things could change, things could be implemented, new acts or new programs could be brought into the larger picture as well, and it could be a step in the right direction.
To think positively, that may be a way, but you see. The Prime Minister's story about self-certification, and it gives you an idea that we have not fully understood what are the problems here. We have not understood. You see, this is the country where buildings collapse and people die. Meaning, my own house collapses and I die. And it's because I did not follow certain standards.
Yes.
And then saying that let's have standards which are simple, or let's not have standards, let people decide on their own, less government and so on. No? It's not going to. It is also a country with the highest rate of accidents.
Yes.
And how are we going to prevent it? Okay. And in the present scheme, I don't see any way we will have less accidents.
All right.
Yeah. So
all right. We'll have to leave it at that, Jason Pais. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing your perspectives on that subject. On that note, we'll slip into a short break, but up ahead on the show, India reacts strongly to China's threat, saying it has no right to hold out any warning. That and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Nobody can threaten or warn India. That's the response that Home Minister Rajnath Singh gave to China on Thursday after China objected to India's plans to build a road along the border in Arunachal Pradesh. Indian officials say if China can spread a rail and road network near the Indian border, it cannot tell India what it can or can't do in India's own territory.
India is flexing its regional muscle. It's telling China not to threaten a sovereign country and instead use dialogue to resolve its border problems.
भारत दुनिया का कोई भी देश वार्निंग इस समय नहीं दे सकता। भारत दुनिया का एक ताकतवर देश बन चुका है और जहां तक इंडो चाइना बॉर्डर डिस्प्यूट का सवाल है, मैं समझता हूं कि चाइना को भारत के साथ बैठना चाहिए और इस डिस्प्यूट को रिजॉल्व करना चाहिए।
India wants to build a 3,400-kilometer long road network along the Arunachal Pradesh border. Also planned are a few army outposts. To facilitate the entire program, it even relaxed some environmental rules last month. On Wednesday, China made a provocative statement telling India that its plan could complicate the border dispute. Security experts feel China is overreacting to the situation.
Very, very unfortunate that China has objected to this sort of a thing. I think construction of roads in the border area is a legitimate requirement. It has got no defense connotation. It is probably meant for the betterment of the people living in the border areas.
Political parties have also reacted to China's remarks. The BJP says China cannot dictate what India should do in Arunachal Pradesh.
As far as India's security and infrastructure concerns are concerned, we take no dictations. No external force has any right to dictate as to in which way India should move ahead with its security and in which way India should build its infrastructure.
कोई हक नहीं है कि इस मामले पर किसी तरीके का सवाल या निशान लगाए। अरुणाचल प्रदेश हिंदुस्तान का हिस्सा है और वहाँ पे जो भी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, सड़कें हैं, वो सरकार का हक है कि वहाँ बनाए।
The lack of a clearly demarcated border has been a trigger for recurring tensions for both countries. In the latest incident in September, Chinese troops crossed over into Ladakh. In a tense standoff, about 1,000 troops from both sides confronted each other. The matter was resolved only after a meeting of the leadership of the two countries. Shamsundar's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on, now India will test its potent nuclear-capable cruise missile Nirbhay today. Nirbhay is a subsonic cruise missile and gives India the capacity to launch different kinds of payloads at different ranges from various platforms at a very low cost. It can be launched from a mobile launcher. Scientists are to forge ahead with the crucial test from the integrated missile test range in Balasore, Odisha, despite the coastal region of the state being hit hard by cyclone Hudhud. The highly maneuverable Nirbhay missile can fly at a treetop level, making it difficult to detect on radar. The range of the missile, which can carry both nuclear and conventional warheads, can be extended up to 1,000 kilometers, giving India the capability to strike deep into enemy territory. Let's bring you an update now on Hudhud. The restoration works is in full swing in cyclone-hit Andhra Pradesh. Efforts are being made to draw power from neighbouring Odisha as part of measures to restore power supply in districts of Visakhapatnam, Vizianagaram and Srikakulam. State officials said that power supply to Visakhapatnam steel plant has been restored. Over 3,000 technical personnel have been mobilised for restoration work. Tamil Nadu government has also sent in technical staff for help. Meanwhile, in Nepal, at least 30 tourists and locals are now believed to have died and dozens are still missing, presumed dead, after an unseasonal snowstorm that hit a popular trekking route in Nepal earlier this week. Nepalese police said 220 people had been rescued on the Annapurna circuit trekking route. On Thursday, mountain rescue teams helped by clear weather and armed with shovels, ropes and ice axes scoured an area of the popular route buried under snow more than a meter deep. Rescue efforts focused on the Thorongla Pass, the highest point on which loops around Annapurna, the world's 10th highest peak. The blizzard was caused by the tail end of cyclone Hudhud that hit India at the weekend and caught many by surprise. Well, more international news now. Kurdish forces have driven out Islamic State out of Syrian town of Kobani, according to reports from the strife-hit region. A Kurdish commander said IS fighters have retreated from all areas except for 2 spots in the east. Significantly, the US-led airstrikes have helped push back the militants. US conducted 14 fresh airstrikes on Thursday. The UN Human Rights Commissioner called Islamic State a potentially genocidal movement.
I will now turn to 2 monumental crises which will inevitably cost us all many billions to overcome. The twin plagues of Ebola and ISIL, both fomented quietly, neglected by a world that knew they existed but misread their terrible potential before exploding into the global consciousness during the latter months of 2014.
Well, Syrian envoy to India, Riyadh Kamel Abbas, lauded India's foreign policy of non-aggression into Syria to check IS threat. He also added that Syria appreciates India's efforts to find a political solution and execute aspirations of Syrians.
We appreciate this policy, especially in our issue, which ask not against any external intervention, external military intervention, and to find political solution and to execute the aspiration.
In some more international news now, the World Health Organization has called for ramping up efforts to prevent Ebola from spreading to other countries beyond Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea. A top WHO official said 15 countries, most of them in North Africa, are on the priority list to receive more help in areas including prevention and protection. Ivory Coast, Mali, Senegal and Democratic Republic of Congo are among them. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has said that the epidemic is a huge and urgent problem.
We have identified both Mali and Côte d'Ivoire as the 2 top priorities countries. A team is being assembled to go there.
I appeal to the international community to provide the $1 billion launch that will enable us to get ahead of the curve and meet our target of reducing the rate of transmission by December 1st.
In the face of increasing alarm over the rising case of Ebola virus, health ministers of the European Union met in Brussels on Thursday to discuss a more aggressive approach to check the spread of the virus.
I want to propose a system to check the passenger for the first airport, the airport to exit, to the second or third airport.
We most definitely need to allocate more resources and more people going to work and help with the situation there, which is a very, very difficult situation.
Britain, Canada and the United States have increased screenings of passengers arriving from West Africa at their airports. France is establishing new treatment centers in Guinea.
Nous avons un double dispositif, j'insiste là-dessus, prise de température à la passerelle, donc avant l'entrée dans l'aéroport, et puis distribution dans l'avion de questionnaires qu'on appelle de traçabilité, c'est-à-dire pour parler comme tout le monde, qui vont nous permettre de retrouver les gens si on a besoin de les contacter après.
US federal health officials will appear before a congressional committee to answer their handling of the crisis. The second nurse detected with Ebola in Dallas was shifted to the Emory University Hospital in Atlanta that treated 2 patients successfully.
If we do these protocols properly, if we follow the steps, if we get the information out, then the likelihood of widespread Ebola outbreaks in this country are very, very low.
US President Barack Obama feels the country's public healthcare infrastructure was strong enough to preempt the spread of the epidemic. The Frontier Airlines even grounded the plane that carried an infected Ebola patient for additional cleaning. Bureau Report, Sabha TV.
Well, let's now bring you up to date with the other news-making international stories in our World Wrap. Turkey failed to get a seat on the United Nations Security Council after member states voted on Thursday. Turkey has been under international pressure to help combat Islamic State militants waging war along its border. The 5 non-permanent seats were given to Venezuela, Angola, Malaysia, New Zealand and Spain. The members will begin their 2-year appointment on the 1st of January 2015. At least 40 people were killed in a series of car bombs and mortar attacks in Shia areas of the Iraqi capital Baghdad. In the deadliest incident, 2 car bombs exploded simultaneously in the western district of Dawlai, killing 14. No one has claimed responsibility for the attacks, but Islamic State militants are suspected to have carried out these attacks. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian leader Petro Poroshenko will meet in Milan on Friday to discuss natural gas supplies and months of conflict in East Ukraine. Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi will host the meeting between the pair on the sidelines of the Europe-Asia summit. Russia had cut the gas supply to Ukraine following the conflict. Riot police cleared an offshoot Hong Kong pro-democracy protest zone in a dawn raid today. The police took down barricades, tents and canopies that have blocked key streets for more than 2 weeks. Police encountered little resistance as many demonstrators were still asleep. The operation was the latest to dismantle barricades after nearly 3 weeks of protests that have paralyzed parts of the Asian financial hub. Collection of witness testimonies has been completed in the sentencing hearing of Olympic and Paralympic star Oscar Pistorius, responding to the defense witness claim that Pistorius will be a broken man if sent to prison. The prison chief said that the athlete would be safe in prison. Victim's cousin said that Pistorius should be given sufficient punishment for what he has done. And now let's take a look at the global stock markets. US stocks end relatively flat on Thursday after strong economic data helps the markets bounce back from earlier losses. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by 24.5 points or 0.15% to close the day at 16,117. Standard & Poor's 500 gained 0.25 points or 0.01% to end the business at 1,862. The Nasdaq Composite added 2.07 points or 0.05% to finish at 4,217. Asian stocks were off session lows, nursing losses amid a sell-off in global equities on Thursday as heightened concerns about world economic growth pressured the US Treasury yields. Japan's Nikkei slid by 2.2% or 65.76 points to end the trading at 14,708. Hong Kong's Hang Seng was down by 1.03% or 85.41 points to close the day at 22,900. Gold prices rose by 210 rupees or 0.55% to 27,119 per 10 grams as speculators created fresh positions after the precious metal advanced to 4-week high in global markets. Silver plunged by 620 rupees or 0.39% to finish at 38,500 per kilogram due to heavy speculative unwinding with the subdued industrial offtake. Well, we'll slip into another short break now, but on the other side, all the sports action. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's get you all the sports action now. Here's the latest sports beat. Atletico de Kolkata continued their impressive performance at the Indian Super League, winning their second consecutive match, beating hosts Northeast United FC 2-0 on Thursday. Ethiopian striker Fikru Tefera and Czech Republic midfielder Jakub Podani scored for the visiting team, who consolidated their position at the top of the standings with 6 points from 2 matches. Beginning India's campaign on Thursday, 2-time World Championship bronze medalist PV Sindhu needed only 31 minutes to edge past Russia's Ksenia Polikorpova 21-17, 21-19 in their first ever match to advance to the women's singles quarterfinals of the Denmark Open Super Series. In the men's singles action, Kidambi Srikanth defeated Chinese Zhen Hao Su 21-15, 21-12 and will next take on South Korean 7th seed Van Ho-son. Top seed David Ferrer and Andy Murray both recorded wins in the second round of the Vienna Open as they keep alive their hopes as a place in the ATP Tour Finals. Top seed Ferrer faced a tough first set against the German opponent before sealing the match 7-5, 6-1 in 1 hour and 28 minutes. In another match, second-seeded Andy Murray defeated Vasek Popsisil 6-4, 6-4. Murray surrendered one break to his Canadian opponent but broke back 3 times to book a place against German Struff in the third round. Scheduled host nation Morocco has asked the Confederation of African Football to postpone the African Cup of Nations over fears that travelling supporters could put the country at greater risk from the Ebola epidemic. South Africa and Ghana are now known to have been approached as the Confederation of African Football seeks a replacement for Morocco to stage the continent's top competition. And finally, the Clean India campaign has really got going with some of the biggest names pitching in with an inspiring initiative. The likes of Shobha Dey, Sania Mirza and Baba Ramdev are wielding the broom. Take a look as we leave you with these visuals. Have a nice day.